lot to talk about, obviously, the migration figures today, but let's just start with those unhappy lives we saw in the report there. Is illegal migration on this level just something which in a civilised society we have to accept is going to happen?
Well, we've just seen some truly devastating stories of people who are destitute, people who need protection, people who came seeking asylum in this country. And it's mind-boggling as to why, in this particular instance, why a Tamil refugee wasn't granted asylum.
The other man we saw there had committed a crime as well.
Right. There are individuals who've come to this country seeking asylum. They are a different category, I believe, from those that David Cameron is addressing. There are people who need asylum, people who have the right to seek asylum in this country, and people who have the right to protection.
And there are also people who've been refused asylum and are staying here.
But still may need protection.
Well, Green, when you see the cases like that, you know, people who've been refused asylum but are still here, are we right to try to remove them?
Yes. This is an entirely different case. Navani's in serious difficulties, no doubt about that. But she's an asylum seeker, she's not an immigrant, and she has become illegal because she had an opportunity to apply for asylum and she was refused, evidently. She then has an opportunity to appeal, all with legal aid, and that was refused also. She now has an opportunity to go home. She'll be paid to go home, her fare will be paid, and she could go home to the country she came to.
Even though she says it's not safe?
Well, she says it's not safe, but the courts, either you believe in the rule of law or you don't, and the courts have found, and the appeal court have found, that her story did not amount to the extent of danger that would mean we should not send people back. And, I mean, it's absolutely right to have a refugee system, to grant assistance to those who need it, but you undermine the whole system if people come to the conclusion that these refugees are not for real. The ones we do give asylum to are for real, but it does mean that those who the judges say are not accurate in their statements really should go home.
But if we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people, is it practical or acceptable that there could be sort of mass evictions of those people on that sort of scale?
Are you talking about the target to get migration down to?
I'm talking about the illegals at this stage.
Well, I mean, I think it's quite interesting if you sort of look at public opinion in this area, and, you know, clearly that's a kind of terrible story, actually, and, you know, there's some very vulnerable people stuck in the system here. And if you look at public opinion, actually, you know, people are kind of, you know, extraordinarily generous, actually. You know, people want us to be a country that does help people who are in vulnerable situations, who are, for example, fleeing persecution and war elsewhere. You know, and I think, you know, as a civilised country, we really do need to do our bit here.
I agree with that, but they do have to be genuine. And if the courts turn them down time after time, then you have to have some sense in the system. But the numbers, we're not talking hundreds of thousands here. Asylum applicants are 24,000 a year. They're 1/10 of the immigration inflow. This is a small issue. It's very important to
when I'm talking 100,000, I'm talking about the estimates of the number of illegal immigrants in this country.
Well, now you are talking about a different issue, yeah. And the problem is this. When it comes to non-EU, people have been arriving at the rate of 300,000 a year. But they've been leaving, guess what, at 100,000 a year. Now, some of the, if you like, missing 200,000 are here perfectly legally. They extended their visa, they got married, or whatever it may be. But there are an awful lot in that who have just stayed on. And there you do hit the problem you've just referred to, very large numbers of people who have no right to stay here.
And my point is whether it's feasible at all, and it's just a political figure of speech really to talk about removing them, because it would have to be an operation on such a scale that people might not find that acceptable.
We do have systems in this country. We have readmission agreements, so economic migrants, those who don't have a claim to remain in this country, can be removed. Now, in the case of refused asylum seekers, it's particularly difficult, because even if someone is refused asylum, they may nonetheless need protection. And this is, the case that we just saw is, I think, atypical of the sort of figures that we're hearing. These are extremely vulnerable people who need protection. Now, if we're talking about people who have overstayed on their visas, again, we don't know how many we're talking about. But there are mechanisms in place, there are laws, there are systems for such people to be returned. if it is safe.
Now, Nida, if we take what the Prime Minister was saying about the whole question of migration, you know, he's got this basic problem. He said he'd get it below 100,000. It's now net at 300,000. Are the measures he's announced today, are they going to make any difference to that?
I think the answer is no, unless he thinks there's some more measures quite quickly. I mean, you know, it's extraordinarily difficult to do, and we've seen that over the past 5 years, where he's had this target for the past 5 years, failed to achieve it. The only time we came close, actually, was in 2012. That was the closest we came. We got it down to about 150,000 a year. The main reason for that was because the economy was tanking. So that kind of tells you that the easiest way to do this is to kind of cause an economic crisis, basically. I mean, the kinds of measures that he's talking about, things like renegotiating welfare benefits for EU migrants, well, actually, most EU migrants don't claim benefits. They don't see that as an incentive. A lot of the people who are actually even entitled to benefits don't claim them. So the idea that if you take those benefits away, people will stop coming is just untenable, really.
It does seem, doesn't it, Lord Green, when you look at the figures that came out today for legal migrants, that the big areas of increase are from those European countries which are having economic problems and indeed work visas all round. So frankly, we're a successful economy, people are coming here to fill roles. Is that an issue?
Well, absolutely it is. Last year, the number of net migrants, those who came minus those who left, over 300,000. The entire population of Cardiff or Leicester arriving every year. Now, if you add to that the increase in population we've already got, largely due to immigration, we will find that in the next 5 years, we will have an extra 3 million population. That's 3 times the population of Birmingham. Now, where are the schools, the hospitals, the roads, the houses going to come for that kind of population increase? Even if they contribute to the economy, which they do to some extent, but not hugely, it's an enormous upheaval to our society. And the thing that David Cameron got right in this speech, it seems to me, is that he understood the extent of public concern. This is right up there with public concerns, with the economy, sometimes ahead of it. And it's no use, it seems to me, trying to pick holes in it. There has to be a strategy and a serious attempt to get these numbers down to a reasonable level.
And do you feel that what David Cameron proposed today is going to do that?
Well, I think we should be picking holes in it. I think we need to disaggregate this number that has been presented. I think we need to say what type of migrants are we talking about? Are we talking about immigrants? Are we talking about EU nationals who are here and who have the right to be here? Are we talking about those deemed to be illegal migrants, those who perhaps have overstayed on the visas? Are we talking about non-EU nationals? We need to be clear on the specific demographics, otherwise we can't build policy.
I'm going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid. We're out of time. The discussion could go on forever, of course. Thank you to all three of you. Thank you.